Well, today I am going to talk about knowledge graphs, and I can see you already cringing and about to turn off this video. Stay with me here. We're not going to dive deeply into knowledge graphs, and I'm not even going to tell you very much about knowledge graphs, but knowledge graphs are an incredibly important ingredient in the Geospatial 2.0 story. So let's start at the beginning. Let's go back to workflows. I like to compare the 2.0 world with the 1.5 world. I like to talk about context, insight, intelligence, and action because they're the four real components that make up this story that we're telling. Forget the technology for the minute. So I've spoken about the fact in the 1.5 world, analysts are critical. Person in the middle is critical. And those folks are people that gather the data together, the geospatial data. They place it on a map, do all of the clever work in the background and place it on a map. That gives the contextual piece of what those elements are, the buildings, the rivers, the parks, the transmission lines, whatever they might be. The next phase that an analyst gets involved with is the analytical part of that. That's where they start to build out the relationship pieces. That provides insight. So an analyst is in the mix generating those outputs from the contextual and insightful outputs, which then lead to decision making. And again, to repeat myself, the decision making and action process is then left to somebody to do. So that's a manual process. The generation of the insight and context is manual by an expert, an analyst. That's then passed on to a decision maker who's then got to assess that and make a decision. Where the 2.0 world changes that is we're automating that process. But more than that, we're adding another brain to the room. So what do I mean by that? Instead of having a geodatabase, which is basically geometry and attributes, we're taking that data, we're combining with that with real-time data. Maybe there's a storm that's moving, maybe it's an IoT feed, and we're generating a knowledge graph. So what is a knowledge graph? In simple terms, we're actually enriching that data with semantics. So we are building in some of those connections, those contextual pieces, those relationship pieces within that structure. So what happens next? That doesn't become a visualization. It doesn't become a visual map. It becomes an understanding map, a semantic map. That is passed into a semantic engine like Genius from Versys. There are a few other ones out there. That then forms the contextual and insightful piece for the reasoning engine to learn from, to make, to think through like your brain would think through that stuff, and then to come up with recommendations on decision making and also actions. That's the piece that's missing in the existing world that's GIS and beyond that. A dashboard that has static data in it that somebody's taken a few days to generate, which is only insight, we can speed up the process there by chucking AI at that and speeding up some of those elements. But the end result is still only insight. It is not a decision-making tool. That's a manual thing. The 2.0 world changes that. It means that we're actually got a tool in the room, a system which can help us in the decision-making process and the action process. So if a real-time event is happening, that data is being fed in with the static data. On the fly, we're building those knowledge graphs, which is why I'm saying they are so important, and that's feeding the reasoning engine with updated information all the time. So you as an operator, you as a person that's working with the system are getting the most cutting edge intelligence from the system to then make decisions. So I always talk about the fact that we're moving away from a world which is based on, which can take hours, days, even weeks to come up with information, to seconds. We've got a new system where the decision making and action journey can take seconds. That is a complete game changer. And the glue in the middle of that are these knowledge graphs. I always encourage people on these videos to sign up for the newsletter. I'm going to write a little bit more about knowledge graphs, not a technical deep dive by any means, but why, and some of the tools that are out there now that are available. There's some open source tools, there's some other ones out there that can allow us to build out that piece, which is the all-important glue which drives the 2.0 system. So there's today's talk. It wasn't too scary. Thanks for watching. As ever, welcome your feedback, input, thoughts, and I'll do another one of these very soon.